I shouldn't have knocked on her door that late, but my hands were already cold from the rain, and the umbrella I borrowed from the corner store had flipped inside out. She opened it slowly, her hair pulled back, a soft house light behind her making the shadows fall across her face. I remember the first thing she said wasn't hello, but, "You look like you're about to drown." Her name was Elena. Late 40s, maybe. Not the type who fussed about appearances, but the type who carried herself like she'd seen enough storms not to be rattled by another. She wasn't my professor, not my boss. Just a neighbor across the hall I'd exchanged polite nods with. Nothing more. Until that night. I stepped inside, shoes squeaking on her hardwood floor. The place smelled faintly of coffee that had been sitting too long, and something floral I couldn't place. She handed me a towel, almost without looking, as though she wasn't sure how much space to give. "Thanks," I muttered, drying my face. The silence pressed heavier than the rain outside. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching me like I was both an intruder and something else. I talked more than I should have. About the broken bus schedule, about how the storm hit faster than I expected. My words filled the room because I couldn't stand how quiet it was. She, on the other hand, hardly said anything. Just small nods, eyes fixed on me longer than they needed to. At one point, I laughed nervously. "I shouldn't be doing this." Her voice was soft, almost like it slipped out before she meant it. "Neither should I." The air shifted. I set the towel down. My hand brushed hers on the counter when I reached for the mug she'd poured without asking. She didn't pull away. For a second, her knuckles rested against mine like a question she hadn't decided if she wanted answered. I looked at her then. Not the neighbor who held the elevator door or checked her mail late at night, but a woman standing too close, with something in her eyes that wasn't supposed to be there. "Why did you let me in?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her lips curved, half amusement, half something heavier. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped past me, brushing her shoulder against mine as if testing how much space I'd allow. The clock on her wall ticked too loudly. The rain outside hammered the glass like it was demanding to be let in. She finally spoke, quiet but deliberate. "Because you looked like someone who might need more than just a towel." My throat tightened. The distance between us was gone before I realized it. Her hand lingered on the back of the chair beside me, her eyes searching mine like she was waiting for me to decide if this was a mistake, or the start of something we'd both regret if we turned away. I didn't move, neither did she, but her breath caught, just barely, when my fingers curled against the edge of the table, inches from hers. And in that pause, I knew. The night was about to tilt into something neither of us could undo. I told myself I'd finish the coffee, thank her, and leave. That was the plan. But then she started talking, not about me, but about herself. "It's been quiet here," Elena said, her voice catching slightly. "Too quiet since the divorce. Some nights I don't know what to do with myself." The words weren't rehearsed. They slipped out, the way confessions do when you're not looking at the person you're speaking to. She was staring at the rain-streaked window, mug cradled close, like she hadn't meant to admit that to anyone, least of all me. I swallowed hard. My mind screamed at me to keep things light, but my eyes betrayed me, tracing the soft curve of her shoulders, the faint tension in her jaw. She wasn't polished like women my age tried to be. She was worn in, like a favorite book, and I hated how much I wanted to keep reading. Dangerous, I thought. Wrong. She wasn't just older, she was untouchable. The neighbor who should have been nothing more than polite nods in the hallway. But now she was letting me in, past locked doors and practiced smiles. I caught myself staring at the ring still circling her finger. Bare, no stone. She noticed too, tugging at it absently. "Sorry," she said, shaking her head like she'd revealed too much. "I don't know why I told you that." My voice came out rougher than I intended. "Maybe because you wanted someone to hear it." Her eyes flicked to mine then, sharp and searching. For a moment, I thought she'd laugh it off. Instead, she set her mug down slowly, deliberately, and stepped closer. I felt the air shift again, the faint warmth of her presence brushing against me. She wasn't smiling this time. Her hand hovered, then rested on my arm, light as a feather, but enough to pin me where I stood. "Stay a little longer," she said. Not a question. My chest tightened. Every nerve screamed to answer, to close the space, to do what we both knew we shouldn't. And for the first time, I almost said it, what I shouldn't. But the words caught in my throat, trembling between danger and desire. I told myself to keep my distance, to let her hand fall away from my arm and pretend it never lingered there. But she didn't move, and neither did I. The silence between us was so heavy it almost drowned out the storm. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. The sound jolted us both back into ourselves. She glanced at the screen, lips tightening before flipping it face down. No explanation, no apology. Just the faint shadow of someone or something she didn't want in that room with us. I should have taken that as my exit. Instead, I found myself asking, "Do you want to get it?" Her answer was immediate. "No, not tonight." The way she said it, firm, almost pleading, made my chest ache. Whoever it was on that phone, they weren't the reason she'd asked me to stay. And then, without warning, the power flickered and went out, plunging the apartment into dim gray from the streetlights outside. She cursed softly, fumbling for a candle in the drawer. I stepped closer, offering to help, and our shoulders brushed in the dark. Too close. My hand grazed hers as she struck the match. It was nothing, an accident, a slip, but neither of us pulled away. For one suspended moment, her skin against mine felt like the most dangerous choice I could make. The flame caught, illuminating her face. So near I could see the tiny lines at the corners of her eyes, the way her lips parted just slightly, like she was holding something back. "I shouldn't be," I started, but the words lodged in my throat. She tilted her head, searching me, waiting for the rest. But all I could do was grip the edge of the counter, as though anchoring myself against the pull I didn't want to resist. Her voice dropped, softer than the rain outside. "Then why aren't you leaving?" I couldn't answer. My pulse betrayed me, quick and reckless, louder than any excuse I could give. The candlelight flickered between us, casting shadows that made the space smaller, the distance thinner. And in that silence, one breath away from her, I knew we were standing on the edge of a line neither of us was supposed to cross. The candle burned low, shadows bending across the room. I should have stepped back, but my body wouldn't listen. "Elena," I said her name like it was a secret I wasn't supposed to know. She didn't move. Her eyes locked on mine, steady, unblinking. "Say it," she whispered. My throat tightened. I could feel the words clawing their way up, words that would break whatever fragile barrier still kept us apart. "I want you. I can't stop thinking about this. I shouldn't be here. All of them true, all of them dangerous." Instead, I asked the only thing I could manage, "Why me?" Her lips trembled, not with fear, but with the effort of holding something back. She set the candle on the table, both hands gripping its base as if she needed the anchor. "Because you look at me like I'm still someone worth being seen." The confession hit harder than I was ready for. I swallowed, my chest tightening. I'd noticed the ring mark, the way her voice faltered when she mentioned the divorce, the loneliness hidden in her quiet. But hearing that made every excuse I had collapse. I stepped closer without meaning to. My fingers brushed hers where they clutched the table. She didn't pull away this time. "Elena!" My voice cracked. "If I stay." Her gaze burned into me, raw, vulnerable. "Then don't say anything you can't take back." The weight of her warning hung between us. My hand lingered over hers, our breaths sinking in the stillness. One move, one word, and everything would unravel. But neither of us moved. The storm outside had quieted, but inside her apartment, The air was thick, charged, waiting. Her eyes dropped to my lips for the briefest second before snapping back up to mine. Loaded silence. The kind that makes you forget if you're supposed to breathe. And then, her voice, barely audible. What happens if we stop pretending we don't want this? Her question, what happens if we stop pretending, hung in the air like thunder waiting to break. I opened my mouth to answer, but a sharp knock at her door froze us both. Elena flinched. Her hand slipped from mine, her body stiff as stone. She didn't move to open it. The knock came again, louder this time. Then a voice, male, low, impatient. Elena, I know you're in there. My stomach dropped. Whoever he was, he didn't sound like a stranger. She closed her eyes, a flicker of panic passing across her face before she masked it with practiced calm. Then she whispered, "Don't say anything." The man outside kept talking. "You left your phone on silent again. I've been calling all night." I glanced at the phone on the counter, still face down. My chest tightened. Whoever he was, he had a claim on her or thought he did. "Elena," I whispered, barely audible. "Who is he?" She didn't answer right away. The silence was louder than the knocks. Finally, she said, "My ex. He still thinks he has the right to show up." The knocking stopped. Heavy footsteps retreated down the hall. Only then did I realize I'd been holding my breath. When I turned back, Elena's hands were trembling on the edge of the table. I reached for her, but she pulled back, shaking her head. "I didn't want you to know," she said, voice breaking for the first time that night. "I didn't want you to see how much he still shadows me." Her honesty cut deeper than any confession could. I thought she was untouchable, untamed. But now she stood there, raw and exposed, admitting she wasn't free. Not completely. And before I could stop myself, the truth slipped out. "I don't care. I can't walk away now." Her eyes widened at my words, like I'd crossed a different kind of line, one she hadn't expected. For a long moment, we just stared at each other, the storm outside replaced by the storm between us. She whispered, barely moving her lips, "Then what are we supposed to do?" Her words, "Then what are we supposed to do?" hung between us like a blade. I wanted to answer, but all I could see was the fear behind her eyes, the trembling in her hands she was trying so hard to hide. "Elena," my voice was rough, unsteady. "I don't have an answer. All I know is I don't want tonight to end like this, like we're both lying to ourselves." She looked away, biting her lip, as if the admission was too much. Then, with a suddenness that stole my breath, she turned back and pressed her palm flat against my chest. Not tender, urgent, testing if I'd push her away. I didn't. Instead, I covered her hand with mine. Her skin was warm, alive, trembling. "You scare me," she whispered, her voice breaking, "because wanting you feels like giving up control, and I've already lost too much." Her honesty hit harder than any kiss could. For the first time, I saw her not just as the woman across the hall, not just as the older neighbor whose presence pulled me in, but as someone fragile, trying to rebuild a life she wasn't sure she could trust again. I leaned in, close enough that her breath brushed my cheek. "Then let me be the one thing you don't have to control." Her eyes closed, and for a heartbeat, I thought she'd step back, retreat. Instead, she stayed. And when she opened them again, the walls she'd been holding up all night had cracked. "Elena," I whispered, "I want this. I want you." The silence after was unbearable. Then she let out a shaky laugh, half relief, half disbelief. "God help us both." And just like that, her forehead rested against mine. Not a kiss, not yet. Something quieter, rawer. A surrender neither of us had planned. No promises, no guarantees. Just two people standing in the wreckage of everything they thought they shouldn't want. And choosing it anyway. The rain had stopped hours ago, but neither of us moved. Her forehead still leaned against mine, the candle burning low on the table. In that quiet, I realized the storm outside hadn't been the danger. It was the storm between us. I thought of how it began. Me dripping on her doorstep, her opening the door out of pity, or maybe something deeper she didn't admit even then. What started as a towel and a cup of coffee had unraveled into this. Two people admitting what they'd both been too afraid to say. "Elena," I murmured, "I don't know what happens tomorrow." Her hand slid down from my chest to my wrist, holding it as if testing if I'd pull away. "Tomorrow can wait," she whispered. "Tonight, I just want to feel seen, wanted, alive." And in that moment, I understood this wasn't just about attraction or the thrill of something forbidden. For her, it was about finding herself again after years of silence and shadow. For me, it was about stepping into something I'd never expected, but couldn't walk away from. We didn't rush it. No dramatic declarations, no promises we couldn't keep. Just the quiet acknowledgement that something had shifted, that we weren't strangers anymore. By the time the candle finally burned out, the room was dark, but I didn't feel lost. I felt chosen. Looking back, I can't tell you if it was right or wrong. I only know it was real, and sometimes that's enough.